Many elderly parents, upon retirement, face a dilemma: how to help their adult children without sacrificing their own well-being. Often, driven by good intentions and parental love, they give too much, not realizing that after retirement, it becomes much harder to restore energy, financial stability, and independence. Giving away a part of their life, even with the best intentions, can gradually destroy the peace they have strived for over the years. In this regard, the question arises: what should you not give to your children after retirement, so as not to undermine your own health, autonomy, and well-being? It is important to understand that protecting your interests is not a sign of selfishness, but a sign of wisdom and self-care. First of all, it is necessary to maintain control over your financial decisions. By signing a power of attorney to manage accounts, elderly people often do not realize that they are gradually transferring the reins of their life into someone else's hands. What started as help can turn into a shift in the balance of power, which will be extremely difficult to reverse. Financial decisions are directly related to the freedom to choose a place of residence, medical care, and lifestyle. By transferring control over finances, a person actually transfers control over their life, which can lead to tension in relationships and even financial abuse. Money is a reflection of labor, boundaries, and independence, so it is necessary to maintain control over it, setting clear boundaries, and using joint accounts with caution. Secondly, do not rush to transfer a house or property before it is really necessary. This step, which seems generous and far-sighted, is actually one of the riskiest. A house is a support, a place where a person decides who to let in and how to live. By transferring ownership, an elderly person loses their legal rights, which can be extremely difficult to regain. Changing circumstances, such as job loss or divorce of children, can lead to the children's problems becoming the parents' problems, and housing being at risk. It is important to leave your name on the title deed, consult with a lawyer, and explore alternative options, such as a trust or life annuity agreements. Thirdly, it is necessary to set boundaries regarding your time and energy. After retirement, time becomes one of the most valuable resources, which many elderly parents give away without restrictions. Helping children and grandchildren is wonderful, but when it starts to be taken for granted and rest and personal space are regularly violated, the balance shifts and irritation creeps into life. After 70 years, energy needs to be conserved, so you need to learn to say no, protect your morning hours, quiet afternoon minutes, and weekends. Clear boundaries are not a rejection of family, but a manifestation of self-respect. Fourthly, it is important to stop playing the role of emotional rescuer or family psychologist for your adult children. By constantly absorbing their stress, fears, and disappointments, you can imperceptibly undermine your own emotional state. With age, emotional strength becomes especially valuable, so you need to learn to listen without solving problems and offer to consult specialists without requiring constant emotional involvement. In this period of life, inner peace is not a luxury, but a necessary medicine. Number 5, sacrificing your hobbies and interests for others. After retirement, a unique opportunity opens up to devote yourself to what has always been interesting, but there was not enough time for. This could be travel, hobbies, volunteering, learning something new. However, many elderly people put their dreams on the back burner in order to always be close to their children and grandchildren, sacrificing their hobbies for their needs. Of course, family is important, but do not forget about yourself. By constantly putting the interests of others above your own, a person loses touch with themselves, loses the joy of life, and a sense of fullness of being. It is important to remember that happy parents are happy children. By doing what they love, an elderly person not only enjoys themselves, but also becomes an example for their children, showing them how important it is to take care of themselves and follow their dreams. Do not be afraid to say no when the request of children contradicts your plans. Do not feel guilty for wanting to devote time to yourself. It is important to find a balance between helping the family and meeting your own needs. After all, retirement is a time for yourself, a time to realize what has always been in your heart. Number 6, giving up your social life and friends. With age, social connections become especially important. Friends are support, communication, joy, and the opportunity to feel needed. However, many elderly people after retirement gradually lose touch with their friends, giving all their time to their families. Moving to children in another city, constant employment with grandchildren, health problems, all this can lead to social isolation. But it is important to remember that friends are not just a pleasant pastime. They are an important part of life that helps maintain health, cheerfulness, and a positive attitude. Do not give up meeting with friends, even if it seems that you do not have time for it. Do not hesitate to call them and offer to meet. It is important to maintain contact with those who are dear to you and not allow yourself to remain alone. After all, communication with friends is a cure for loneliness, depression, and many other problems. Number 7. Ignoring your needs for self-care and health. After retirement, it is especially important to take care of your health and appearance. Regular medical examinations, proper nutrition, physical activity, and adequate sleep are all necessary to maintain health and longevity. However, many elderly people neglect their needs, giving all their time and energy to caring for others. They forget about themselves, stop taking care of their appearance, refuse to visit doctors, and play sports. This leads to a deterioration in health, a decrease in vitality, and a loss of interest in life. It is important to remember that taking care of yourself is not selfishness, but a necessity. A healthy and happy elderly person can give much more to their children and grandchildren than a sick and tired one. Do not neglect your needs. It is important to find time for yourself, for your health and beauty. After all, retirement is a time for life, not for survival. Number 8. Allowing children to dictate how to live. With age and retirement, many elderly people face a situation where their adult children begin to actively interfere in their lives, giving advice, indicating how to properly manage time, money, and even with whom to communicate. Often this happens with the best intentions, out of concern for parents, but sometimes such interference crosses the line and turns into a dictatorship. It is important to remember that you are an adult, independent person who has the right to your own opinion and decisions. You have lived a long life, accumulated experience and knowledge, and no one has the right to tell you how to live. Of course, you can and should listen to the advice of children, but the last word should always remain with you. Do not allow children to impose their views and beliefs on you. Do not be afraid to defend your point of view, even if it does not coincide with the opinion of children. It is important to set clear boundaries and make it clear that you appreciate their care, but at the same time you want to make decisions concerning your life independently. After all, retirement is a time for freedom and independence, not for submission to someone else's will. Number 9. Becoming a victim of manipulation and blackmail. Unfortunately, in some families there are situations when adult children try to manipulate their elderly parents, using various methods of blackmail to achieve what they want. This can be emotional blackmail, when children put pressure on pity, accusing parents of indifference and lack of love. This can be financial blackmail, when children threaten to deprive parents of support if they do not fulfill their requirements. It is important to recognize the signs of manipulation and not succumb to provocations. Do not allow children to play on your feelings and use you for their own purposes. If you feel that you are being blackmailed, do not be afraid to seek help from a psychologist or lawyer. It is important to remember that you have the right to respect and decent treatment, and no one has the right to manipulate you. Number 10. Losing faith in yourself and your strength. With age and retirement, many elderly people begin to doubt their strengths and capabilities. They feel unnecessary, useless, and unclaimed. This leads to a loss of interest in life, depression, and apathy. It is important to remember that age is not a sentence. You can still be an active, useful, and interesting person. Do not allow yourself to lose faith in yourself and your strength. Look for new opportunities for self-realization. Do what you love, communicate with interesting people, learn new things. It is important to remember that life goes on, and you can live it brightly and richly, regardless of age. Retirement is a time for new discoveries and opportunities, not for despondency and disappointment. And protecting this peace is not about shutting yourself off from the world, but about keeping your heart open and loving while maintaining your own identity. Point 5. Direct responsibility for raising grandchildren. Often, elderly people gladly and warmly participate in the lives of grandchildren. However, when it comes to fully or almost fully taking on the burden of their upbringing, especially during a well-deserved rest, this can become an unbearable burden for physical health, mental balance, and financial well-being. What started as minor assistance gradually turns into an unspoken obligation, and suddenly it turns out that pension savings no longer belong to you in full. Caring for young children is hard work that requires considerable physical effort. It affects the quality of sleep, diet, stress levels, as well as the ability to visit doctors and take care of yourself. From an emotional point of view, it can feel like a return to a stage of life that has already been passed. While now, at this stage, peace, stability, and time for reflection and enjoyment of life are needed. Raising a child is a job that requires complete dedication. And if this was not planned in advance and was not a personal choice, it can imperceptibly deprive you of the opportunity to experience grief, travel, relax, and even just be alone with your thoughts. If a child is really in a difficult situation and needs support, it is necessary to consider all possible options. Can assistance be shared between other family members? Is it possible to involve a kindergarten or nanny, at least on a partial basis? Can specific hours or days be set for providing assistance, instead of being available around clock? Setting boundaries is not a rejection, but a manifestation of clarity. For decades, you have taken care of others. And although grandchildren are a source of great joy, no one is obliged to start all over again at the age of 70 or 80. It is natural to say, I love them. I will guide and help them where I can, but I cannot take on their upbringing. This truth may be painful, but it may be the most reasonable decision for all parties. Point 6. Pension savings or reserve fund. One of the most generous and at the same time risky decisions is to give a child access to funds that have been accumulated throughout life. It may seem harmless to withdraw a small amount from pension savings to pay off a child's debt, help with a mortgage for a few months, or provide financial support during a crisis. However, the result is always the same, undermining the financial security that was supposed to protect in the future. Providing assistance is natural. It is perceived as a manifestation of love and care. It seems that this is how it should be. But few people talk about the fact that as soon as this money leaves a personal account, it is almost never returned. And if suddenly health deteriorates, expenses increase, or an unforeseen circumstance occurs, the financial safety net that was counted on will no longer be there. And this is not just a risk, it is a real threat. And it's not just about money. It is also an emotional burden. Constant thoughts about whether there will be enough funds for the future. This is a quiet anxiety that arises every time you visit a pharmacy, visit a doctor, or receive a bill to pay. The stress alone caused by financial instability can disrupt sleep, worsen mood, and negatively affect the quality of life. You should not consider yourself a bad parent if there is a need to protect your savings. It is not selfishness to draw a clear line between generosity and self-preservation. Children will still be able to restore their financial situation, while parents may not have enough time or health to do so. If there is really a desire to help, it is necessary to set a limit and stick to it. First of all, you should offer advice and then financial assistance. Support in finding loans, installments, or other options for obtaining financial support. And it is important to remember that maintaining financial independence is not only taking care of yourself. It also means that in the future you will not have to depend on children, which many of them secretly fear, although they do not talk about it out loud. Point 7. The right to make decisions in your life. After retirement, needs, daily routine, and priorities change, and everyone deserves the freedom to make decisions that reflect who you are now and not who others want to see you. However, one of the most imperceptible ways to lose control is when adult children begin to make decisions instead of parents and not jointly with them. This rarely happens suddenly. It all starts with innocent suggestions. Why don't you move closer to us? You shouldn't drive anymore. It's time to sell the house and simplify your life. And although many of these phrases are spoken with love and care, if they are repeated without taking into account personal feelings, they begin to be perceived as orders and not as a manifestation of care. Life does not have to conform to someone else's ideas to be fulfilling. Everyone remains the author of their own story. And just because children have their own opinion, even with the best intentions, this does not give them the right to dictate where to live, how to spend time, and how to arrange their last years of life. This does not mean that you should not listen to the opinions of others. On the contrary, it is wise to take into account the opinions of others, especially when it comes to safety or care. However, the decision of where to live, what kind of assistance to need, and how much freedom to leave should ultimately reflect personal values. Retirement is not the end of the right to make decisions. This is a time to regain control over your life, a time for a conscious look into the future, standing firmly on your feet in the present. Because as soon as you allow someone else to control your life, it becomes more and more difficult to get everything back. It is necessary to protect your right to choose. Speak openly and clearly. Write down important things, ask questions, and do not be afraid to say, "I appreciate your care, but I know what is right for me." One such phrase can save not only personal autonomy, but also dignity. Final thoughts. Retirement is an important stage of life. It is earned by hard work. It is deeply personal and should be lived in accordance with your own terms. However, too often, in the name of love or devotion, elderly people give away what provides them with peace: their money, their time, their homes, their boundaries. And the price of this generosity is not only financial, but also emotional, psychological, and personal. If today's information has helped to rethink something, let it be the following. Everyone has the right to love their children without sacrificing themselves. Everyone has the right to set boundaries without feeling guilty. And everyone absolutely has the right to protect what has been created, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The 7 points that have been considered are not a rejection of support, but a way to provide assistance without destroying your foundation. This is a choice of such a model of retirement life in which personal needs do not remain in last place, in which the voice sounds confident, and in which the last years of life are determined not by a sense of duty, but by clarity, courage, and self-care. Now, it is worth pausing and thinking about which of these 7 areas is particularly relevant at the moment. What of the listed, perhaps, has already begun to be given away unconsciously? And what of this are you ready to start protecting? Thank you for your attention. Your opinion is very important. Leave a comment and share what was most useful and how you plan to apply in your life. Your thoughts inspire, motivate, and help to move forward. If the information was useful, like, subscribe, and share with friends. Your support helps to create useful, honest, and inspiring content. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.